Good afternoon. Welcome to the City of Suffolk Board of Zoning Appeals, September 13th, 2022. Mr. Skinner, will you please call roll?
Dominique Epps.
Here.
Richard Eslick.
Here.
Dan Froman.
Here.
Corey Cornegay.
Here.
Melissa Venable.
Yes, here.
We have a quorum.
Good. Are there any corrections to the previous BZA minutes from last month? If not, may I have a motion to accept these minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
By just verbally, all approved, say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Anyone in denial? The minutes are approved. Our first agenda item this afternoon is BZA 26-2022, BC Branch Enterprises, Inc. Mr. Skinner, would you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 2622. The applicant, BC Branch Enterprise, Inc., is requesting a variance to reduce the required setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map 35E, double parentheses C, W10, located on Clary's Drive. Zoning classification, residential, medium density, RM. When you act upon this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a single-family dwelling. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff report by Jennifer Cobb, Zoning Administrator.
Good afternoon, board members. I will be presenting this application on behalf of my assistant, Melvion Knight. As previously mentioned, the applicant, BC Branch Enterprise, Inc., on behalf of Bernard and Barbara Brown, the property owners, is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards K, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 25 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a new single-family dwelling. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 35E CW10, located on the corner of Clary's Drive, Suffolk, Virginia, Whaleyville voting borough, zoning classification RM, residential medium density. This variance request was advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2.2204 of the Code of Virginia. A sign was also posted on the property. The applicant stated the property was acquired in good faith in order to build a new single-family residence. The dimensional requirements for newly platted lots in the RM zoning district have a total land area of 10,000 square feet with a minimum street frontage of 60 feet and a minimum lot width of 80 feet when measured at the front setback line. The property identified as Clary's Drive is approximately 4,800 square feet in area and 40 feet in both lot width and frontage as illustrated on the physical survey showed before you. This non-conforming lot is a legal lot of record. Therefore, the findings of the survey show the lot's deficiency when compared to the RM zoning district. So therefore, staff recommends approval of this variance request. Here's the survey that the applicant provided. You can see where if he were to meet the setbacks, it would provide no room for the structure to go. And then we also have the elevations of the proposed dwelling. And I'm available for any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. Ms. Cobb, I believe Mr. Carnegie has a question for you before
Yes,
you
sir.
leave.
The only question I have, because I was out there at this property yesterday and at that corner, that corner has a bus stop, and there was an accident there yesterday also. My only concern is the driveway. If the driveway could be put on the opposite side of the home, for that way incoming, outcoming, and them cars coming in and out of that driveway, it won't cause a hazard.
I'm sure the applicant wouldn't mind, and also when these come through, it gets sent to every department, and traffic will weigh in on comments and ask for them to move stuff if they need be.
Thank you, ma'am. We will now open our public hearing. Hearings are 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application?
Good afternoon. Brennan Branch, Suffolk, Virginia, 1500 Copeland Road. It's actually, we're looking to put a single-family house there, and we don't have a problem switching the driveway to the other side. No problem at all.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak against or in opposition of this application? Seeing none, is there anything additional, sir? That'll close this public hearing. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns, or a motion?
I move to approve.
I second, as long as the driveway is on the other side, I second that.
Would you consider making a motion in regard to moving or relocating? Okay. Motion's so made that the driveway would be relocated along Clary's Drive to the other corner or perhaps behind the residence, but away from the corner of Clary's Drive and North Floyd. We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion of the motion. Seeing none, please call the roll, Mr. Skinner.
Dominique Epps,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Dan Froman,
Yes.
Corey Cornigan,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Our second item this afternoon is BZA 27-2022, 1525 Airport Road. Mr. Skinner, would you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 2722. The applicant, Resource One, and Roger Leonard are appealing a written determination from the zoning administrator for a container depot. The property is identified as tax map 44*99A. The address is 1525 Airport Road. Zoning classification heavy industrial, M2. When you act upon this request, we will be acting on a request to uphold or deny the written determination of the zoning administrator regarding the container depot/shipping operation. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff report by Jennifer Cobb, zoning administrator.
Good afternoon again. As previously mentioned, the property located at 1525 Airport Road is zoned M2, heavy industrial, and is surrounded by other M2 and residential uses located within the agricultural zoning district. The property is also located within the Special Corridor Overlay District and is governed by the guidelines listed in Section 31-412 of the Unified Development Ordinance. Some background information on this application. The applicants had a virtual pre-submittal meeting for a few months prior to discuss the potential site improvements for Mobile Mini Solutions. According to the business model on the website, they are North America's leading storage container and on-site office provider. They provide storage containers to businesses and contractors, a portable, lockable storage space that can be utilized at construction site during construction. The applicant stated they would be storing the containers on the site while their customers were not renting or utilizing them. They also mentioned stacking the containers on the site while they were not in use. Zoning staff classified the described use of the storing containers on site as the principal use as a container depot shipping. The applicants did not agree with this use classification, requested an official determination of zoning, which was provided July 11th, 2022. According to the Unified Development Ordinance, the use of a container depot shipping would require a conditional use permit in the M2 zoning district. The UDO defines a container depot shipping as an operation for the temporary storage of empty or dry shipping containers conducted as the principal use of the property. A shipping container is defined by the UDO as a portable, weather-resistant receptacle designed for and used in multimodal shipment of goods, wares, or merchandise. Receptacles originally designed for the transport of goods, but not currently used for such purposes. A shipping container shall have a measurement designation of at least 20 equivalent units, and Mobile Minis Incorporation website states that they are portable storage containers that are made from repurposed shipping containers, and they are also portable containers that bring the strength, durability, and reliability of shipping containers to your supplies and equipment, and that was quoted from their website. So this confirms that mobile mini containers are receptacles originally designed for the transport of goods, but may not be currently used for such purposes. This is a picture off of their website that shows the containers stacked. And the appellant's position, the applicants feel the proposed use falls under heavy equipment and industrial storage lots, which would be permitted by right within the M2 zoning district. My position, or the administrator's position, is the UDO defines heavy equipment as self-propelled, self-powered, or pull-type equipment and machinery, including engines weighing 5,000 pounds, so 2.5 tons or more, primarily employed for construction, industrial, maritime, mini, and forestry uses. As such terms are commonly used and understood as a usage of trade in accordance with the Virginia Code 8.1A-303C. Based upon the definitions in the UDO, the use described by the applicants, and what is described on the company's website, zoning recommends the Board of Zoning Appeals uphold the written determination of zoning issued July 11th, 2022, and include it in the staff's report. And I'm available for any questions the board may have.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was
There was a
just
lot of
catching up.
information. Yeah, so these are some of the definitions for the shipping container depot and what we define shipping containers as.
Okay, and you'll leave that up. But I do, for clarification, these are recycled or converted shipping containers. They were clear to say that.
According to their website, they're made from refurbished shipping containers, yes.
Okay, in my mind, I see these as, in today's day and age, more like sheds or portable sheds, which brings up a question, if you don't mind me asking now. I think it's Tri-State, which has been around forever, who does have sheds, and they distribute those throughout, just as an example from something that we would have in the OD. What would that be zoned under or categorized under? And I should have looked that up before I came to this.
If you're talking about like like you see at Home Depot where they have the sheds out, I'm
No,
not
we
sure
specifically have a use, Tri-State Builders is the
I'll have to look
user.
that up.
And we have, I believe, 1 or 2 of them here in Suffolk, off of Holland Road. I would be interested to know what that was classified as, because this to me is like a modern version of the 1980 or 1990 shed. So it would be, if we can figure that out as we go through this application, it would be interesting to know if that's an M1 or M2 use. Because they've clearly stated this isn't, and we've seen these all throughout the East Coast. It's not, even though it looks like a shipping container, it's not being used as a shipping container. Is that correct?
It's not being used to ship goods. It's being used to store stuff.
And that is part of the definition? Okay.
It might not be being utilized as shipping goods right now, but that was the original intent.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions for Ms. Cobb?
I have a question about, excuse me, the FAA rules on the height of the structures. I understand it's going to be too high, and that would be approximately, 17, 18 feet? So I think they're okay, but I just wondered if was consideration given to that.
So if the board upholds a decision, then they would have to go through the conditional use permit requirement, and there's supplemental standards that they would have to adhere to, and that requires them only to stack too high. Yes, so they would be meeting that FFA requirement.
And if they don't have to go through the
So if it's a by right use, then there's no conditions that'll be put in place, just a setback.
Thank you.
Could you repeat that again? It would need to go back before.
So if it is determined that you guys uphold my determination, then they would have to go through planning commission and ultimately get approved by city council to have this use there. It's not a by right use. If you guys decide it's heavy equipment storage or something else, it could be done by right without any additional requirements. So that means we couldn't really limit the stacking height or anything like that, because it would just be based on the height in that zoning district.
Well, the FAA requirements
That
would
would,
limit
but.
that. Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Cobb?
I know I
Thank
threw a
you.
lot of information at you guys, so I apologize.
Yeah, actually, would you, before you, would you put those definitions?
Oops, sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. We will now open the public hearing. We have 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for any opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone to speak in favor of this application?
Can I hand these to you? Because I can't put anything up, I guess.
Ms. Cobb, they have handouts.
6.
Thank you. If you could state your name, sir.
Yes, my name is Joe Carroll. I'm the main applicant. I'm trying to buy the property and move Mobile Mini onto the site. And really, I have 3 goals today. I want to let you know exactly who Mobile Mini is, what it is that they do, and why Mobile Mini has nothing to do with the shipping industry, or why the operations are nothing like a container depot for shipping. And I was going to do a PowerPoint, but I was told I couldn't put stuff up, so I'll just give you this hard copy. Mobile Mini is a national rental equipment company, plain and simple. That's all they do. They have 177 facilities across North America. They're NASDAQ traded. They're #1 in their industry. They're owned by William Scotsman, which is the largest modular office company in the world. So they're clearly in the equipment rental business. Their largest competitors are United Rentals, Sunbelt Rentals, McGrath, Pods, etc. Basically, what they do is they try to provide short and long-term solutions to construction sites. Again, nothing to do with the port. These are the type of companies that you can see here: U.S. military, construction companies, small and large retailers, all kinds of things. They have 75,000 customers. They do not ship anything. Not at any time when a Mobile Mini piece of rental equipment is moved is there anything in it or being shipped. It's driven over to where it's rented, and then it's driven back after it's been swept out. No shipping container calls Mobile Mini for 20 ISO-approved shipping containers, and that's a key deal. ISO is the standard by which all shipping containers in the world they have to live by that standard in order to go in and out of ports. Mobile Mini owns their own fleet. They do not store anything for anybody else. Mobile Mini has no association whatsoever with a shipping container depot business. If you look at the next page, there's a color drawing of the different types of products that they put out. They put out modular bathrooms, or portable bathrooms, portable buildings, portable storage units. They have a proprietary locking system on the ends that keep it really safe, which is kind of the main reason why they're so different from everybody else. These come in 10-foot, 15, 20, 25, 30, and 40-foot lengths. The next picture shows the security offices. These can be 1/3 office, 2/3 storage. They can be all office. They can be half-half. If Mobile Mini bought a 40-foot container and it was a former ISO container, it would be brought over and be heavily modified. It could have a man door put in, 4 windows put in, an air conditioning unit, flooring. A number of things happened to these before if they ever came from a prior port use. William Scotsman is their owner, so I just point out that they rent out these modular offices on bigger jobs. And they rent out furniture, water coolers, all kinds of things. I want to talk about a container depot shipping, which is what we were given by Ms. Cobb. And that is, container depots to me are located close to shipping ports. Now, Mobile Mini has 177 facilities. The vast majority of them are nowhere near the water. I mean, they're all in pretty much every state, probably 48 of the states have Mobile Minis. So why would we be in Denver, Omaha, Des Moines, Iowa, if we were trying to do shipping container business? Container depots are an absolute beehive of activity. We are not that. That's why a container depot under the rules has to have a 10-foot fence, has to have a 300-foot setback, because they're basically built like a prison. They don't want anybody going in or out of there. They have one entrance, one exit. They're completely different than what a Monday through Friday equipment rental business does. Mobile Mini makes no money on anything that's in their yard. When their yard is empty, they're making a lot of money. When their yard is full, they're not making much money. Just the opposite of a container depot for shipping. Mobile Mini owns all their product, so they take good care of this product. A container depot for shipping, they just stack stuff everywhere based upon what their clients' needs are. I think comparing Mobile Mini to a shipping container depot is like comparing an auto dealership to a wrecking yard. You know, an auto dealership sells new cars, used cars, car parts. They must be a wrecking yard. Well, it's not the case. Next is a quick picture of, I'm running out of time here, but a container depot. You can see they stack these things sometimes 8 high down in Los Angeles. Next picture is a simple, how we're taking it from a very existing yard with an existing industrial building to a very few changes. We're rocking it and fencing it and putting in retention ponds. This is M2 zone site, heavy industrial. I just wanted to tell you that 9 weeks ago, I called the city to set up a meeting. And I did this through Kevin Hughes. He set the meeting up. It was for Ms. Cobb, myself, Mr. Hughes, and the property owner, Roger Leonard, to meet. We showed up at the meeting. I flew 2,500 miles, showed up at the meeting. Kevin's there. Ms. Cobb's not there. And I don't understand why. It was actually really, really frustrating because I simply came out to have this discussion 8 weeks ago. And so there's been no dialogue, but what I found out in that discussion was from Malvania Knight, Ms. Cobb's assistant. She said, Jen's really digging in her heels on this one. And I said, well, where is she? Let's talk. I mean, I'm not trying to get away with anything here. This is a great company. Let's sit down and talk. And there's just been very little dialogue, and it just hasn't been positive. And I'm trying to, that's why I'm here today. I mean, I've wasted a lot of time, I feel. So I did meet with the mayor on that trip, and the mayor said, we talked about it, and I showed him our deal, and he said, this is a use by right. He really felt that. I also actually, Kevin Hughes in the meeting said, this sure sounds a lot like Sunbelt Rentals. And I said, they're one of our competitors. This is what we do. So this is why I needed to sit down with Ms. Cobb and have this discussion. Literally everyone I've talked to, I talked to the head of the airport. That's zoned M2. They have a bunch of containers over there, real shipping containers. I'm not doing shipping containers, but I talked to the head of the airport, and he was like, yeah, I think it's a great use for this property, especially knowing what could go on an M2 zone property. Finally, I've opened up 52 of these yards over the years in 15 years. I've never been categorized as a container depot for shipping, not once, not even, it's never been brought up. So I started thinking about why this determination. And the first thing I could come up with was because I couldn't find a more appropriate determination. But then I say no to that, just because if you look at exactly what Mobile Mini does, they are a rental equipment business. That's it, plain and simple. The property will be used as a heavy equipment and industrial storage lot. That, word for word, is exactly what we're going to use it for. It's a permitted use by right. Mobile Mini has nothing to do with shipping or running a depot for shipping containers. We just don't. The second thing is the reasoning would be because Mobile Mini's website says they buy former shipping containers. The problem is you have to look at the whole sentence, and they modify them greatly. So they are no longer ISO containers. If they had a former life as an ISO container, that's fine. But a lot of people, if we started a dumpster company, we could buy 50 containers, cut the tops off, put wheels on the bottom, paint them our corporate color. Are they still containers? No, now they're dumpsters. So I just want to say that they get modified and repurposed for temporary office space and temporary storage. They do not go back to the shipping industry in any form or fashion. They legally can't go back because they're not ISO approved. I need your help here. I think it's been a miscommunication and a misidentification of a company and what they truly do. I think it's important that just, even though this isn't a zoning question, the property taxes on this property will go from $550 a year to over $10,000. Now, that's not your issue, but if we don't get this zoning thing right, that won't happen. So there's a lot of things that have to fall in line. Everything's fallen in line for me on this deal except for this we haven't been able to communicate about this zoning. So Mobile Mini happens to be a great company. I've been associated with them for a long time. They're really great during emergency purposes, especially because they provide temporary use for people. I just ask that you re-look at this, identify Mobile Mini as a heavy equipment and industrial storage lot. This is going to be a regional headquarters for them. They'd love to be here. Thank you. If there's any questions, I could take them, or we talk later.
Well, when we close the public hearing, we'll ask you to come back up for some questions.
Thank you. I know I threw a lot at you, but I didn't have the chance to do a PowerPoint.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application?
My name is Michael Miltier. I live at 1563 Airport Road, very close to the proximity of this business that's hoping to open, and hopefully we can get some better understanding. One of the concerns that I have that it is zoned for heavy industrial, however, it butts right up to residential. It has been heavy residential for years because the airport has been there for years. However, within the last 5 years, there probably has been 15 residential homes built on that road, which means traffic has increased drastically. One of my concerns is, if I can ask them, how do these, whatever you call them, arrive to your location?
We'll ask all questions after the
Okay.
public hearing is
Okay.
closed.
If it is on a transfer truck, there is a cargo portal on Meadow Country Road. I took a video of that transfer truck coming out with a cargo, and they're the same size as a cargo, standing. I took it from directly in front of his business. As that truck came out of Meadow Country Road into Airport Road, it blocked it completely. I have it on my phone. I don't have a problem in sending it to you. If there's no turn-in lane, that would just, and this is coming out of Meadow Country Road, turning onto a road. If they don't have a turn-in lane, it's total chaos. Because the number of homes that have been built out there, there are several bus routes that run out there, which could cause a safety issue. Yesterday, I did go out to the skydive. I also went out to the airport. I guess they're playing both fields because they said they were not in favor of it. Friday, I had a skydive. I live right there. A skydiver land right in my outfield. Is that going to be a safety issue for those that are skydiving? The skydiving business has increased. They have probably 800-900 jumps on a regular basis. Everybody don't know how to jump. You got a metal building standing there. Is that a safety issue? Is that going to be a liability to them or a liability to the skydiving? How many entries and exits are we going to have daily, weekly, monthly? This is something that needs to be addressed. And if there are going to be building, what about the noise factor? If there's going to be a noise factor like I said, it was residential and it used to be all agricultural, changed completely. So these are just some of the concerns that I had with this process. Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak in opposition of this application?
Good afternoon, panel. My name is Reverend Randy Skeeter. I represent the Skeetertown Civic League in Suffolk, which encompasses Airport Road all the way up to the airport. Okay, and just to go along with what Mr. Miltier said, there is a avenue called Nextdoor. Okay, it's a social media type thing for the communities in Suffolk, and several people have posted on this particular venue, or I guess depot, shipping, container, heavy industrial, what of the several things we've heard today, but very concerned. Like I said, it butts right up against the residential portion of Meadow Country and Airport Road. The roads are very narrow, and the tractor trailers that are going to be transporting these containers are sometimes they take the whole road. I don't know how well their driving is or whatever, but when they turn out of Meadow Country Road, turn out of this facility or wherever they have to come from, a lot of times, hopefully you all have seen this in your driving, a tractor trailer will take over the road no matter who has the right of way. Because what are you going to do? You have no recourse but to stop. So this is, and it's a lot of senior citizens living in this area. We have a Civic League meeting tonight. I wish I could have got more of the people to come out and voice their opinion about this. So we're looking at this as safety hazard. I heard a concern about FAA because airport's right across the street from it. So along with that, not even talking about a depot of some sort that right across from the airport that's kind of fixed up and aesthetically looking good, now you're going to have some sort of container depot there, which would be an eyesore to that community, the airport, the city of Suffolk, safety factors dealing with parachute jumps, cars, people walk, ride bicycles, all of these things. We heard about Mobile Mini. I mean, it's probably one of the best presentations I've ever heard in the United States. You know, if it was anywhere other than Suffolk, Virginia, we probably would want to invest in it. However, it's not. It's right in our yard. There are a lot of concerns here. So I humbly ask this panel to uphold Ms. Cobb's decision. Send this back through planning and city council because of the concerns of the community in this place. Councilman Bennett has weighed in on this. Haven't been able to contact Councilman Williams, but I think that there's some more I's and T's that need to be dotted than just to go through this and then you'll be sorry later. I hate to put it that way, but you know, I think there's a lot more research that needs to be done. So, like I'm using that word, but I's and T's to be dotted to make sure we're making a good, informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have 8 minutes left. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition of this application? Seeing none, for the folks that were here to speak in favor, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, if anyone would like to speak.
Members of the commission and staff. Dan, it's good to see you. It's been many years. I'm the owner of the property, Roger Leonard. I've lived in Suffolk for many years. I own this property and a few others. I'm actually looking at relocating back down to Florida. I work for Governor DeSantis and I work for 4 of the other state administrations. I'm a retired federal administrator, a senior administrator. I know Ms. Cobb has a difficult decision to make, and she's made some of them. And all I can say is that when you're given the discretion to make that decision about what's what and what's not, it can be difficult, but I think with dialogue we could have stopped this. Now, this is an M2 zone property. We're not talking about a rezoning. It's going to be used for something. I have 2 other offers that I'm looking at. I live there. My neighbors are my friends. I don't want anything to go there that should not go there. It has been through traffic. It has a very low impact on traffic. Robert Lewis has looked at it. There was no discussion of anything other than the wide commercial entrance that was going to be put in. I think the misidentification of what these things are is what really is the crux of it. And they're storage units. They're like pods. They're like little yard barns. They're used in the commercial industry. And I think the function, just as you would do the 2 different types of appraisal or assessment, either use or value. The use of this company is rental equipment. And I'm a pilot. I've been a pilot 52 years. I used to run the business on the Suffolk airport. Dan and I know each other from the airport. And there is an existing aviation easement over the property. That easement legally controls the height of anything that could go on that property or the adjacent properties which I used to own that someone else owns now, which would limit the size and scope of what could go on there as far as height. So that's already been resolved by legal means. It conveyed in the 1949 Federal Surplus Property Act. I've talked to Tim Daniels at the airport, who I know, and I believe Dan knows, and the airport manager has no issue with it because the purchaser has agreed to proffer to the city not to stack these things higher than too high. That's 18 feet. The easement would allow for up to 28 to 30 feet in the area that we're talking about because we're off the center line. There's actually an intense development adjacent to me, which Billy Nelson owns. He's got 24 buildings going on there. Well, the buildings that he's building are higher than the building or the double stack containers, and they were already approved by the city for height. So Dan, I don't think there's an issue with that. And obviously the FAA had to look at it and make comment appropriately. I do have other uses that I'm going to put this to. I'm going to leave the area, retire, and I'm going to do something with it. It's zoned M2. I feel this is a very light use, very little traffic, Monday through Friday, a few come and go. As the presenter previous said, there's containers, actual shipping containers from the port over on the airport right now, 50 to 100 at a time, being fumigated, and they're coming and going on Airport Road and Meadow Country Road. Now, Airport Road's a little better improved in the section that I'm in than it is further down. Now, some of the new construction that's occurred that's been discussed, that's all quite a ways down from me. None of it is adjacent to my property. Nothing has really changed. I've kept the property up nice. I've been a good tenant or good owner, if you will, of the property. It's a nice looking property. They're going to keep the front up as it exists to keep the nice presentation for the arrival at the airport. They're going to stack these things too high or less. There's going to be no vertical construction or buildings built other than a pavilion to clean these things up when they come back to the yard. When I looked at it, I talked to Mike Duman, all of you know the mayor, and I said, this is what we're planning on doing. What do you think, Mike? He said, well, this seems to be a by right use, and I think that's clear.
Less than a minute, just so.
Yes, ma'am. So I would just ask for your indulgence that there's just been a mistake by the visual cue of what's here. These are storage units. They're not containers. I would ask that you take a look at this and make the decision predicated on what is actually before you. And I think anyone that would adjudicate this would agree that before the bar, this would be a storage unit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else to speak? We have 10 seconds left, so.
Okay, I just want to say, if I lived in the neighborhood, I wouldn't want a container depot yard. And we're not a container depot yard. We've already talked to the traffic people. They said no traffic study needed because there's not a lot of in and out at this place. Roger hit the FAA information. It's M2 zoned. It's very low impact on an area. And I have proffered to go too high because I thought immediately that was going to be an issue. I said, we'll go too high. None of my yards that I own go anything less than 3 high. I'll go too high here. Anyway, I'd like to work with the city of Suffolk. I'd love to put this together. I think it'll be something that will be wonderful for them for the city and for Mobile Mini for a long, long time.
Thank you, sir. That closes our public hearing. I believe there are several questions, but I did want to make one thing clear before we jump in. This isn't a rezoning case. This is specifically for the gentleman that spoke against the application or the definition. We are here to either uphold the definition that the city has made or the ruling the city has made or refute that, I believe. Again, this site is zoned M2. We aren't here to change that. It is in M2 zoning. I also, and I apologize, I'm going to take the floor for a second. I did want to verify one thing, Ms. Cobb. For the definition, and this has been pretty clearly stated both up here, but I just wanted to reiterate, shipping is defined as something has, I think I wrote it down when you said it, it's a multimodal shipping of goods. And they've clearly stated, and their website has clearly stated, that there aren't any goods being shipped in these containers. These containers are being modified. Is that correct? Because I feel like that's a big part of this. We're not shipping goods.
Weather resistance receptacle designed for and used for. And then it says receptacles originally designed for the transport, but not currently used for such purposes. So when you talk about the primary use of a property and you're stacking these containers, whatever you want to call them, shipping containers, storage containers, we felt it fell cleanly into the temporary storage of empty or dry shipping containers conducted as a principal use on the property, because that's essentially all that's going to be on the property, is just these containers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And-
I was looking for
yeah.
some clarification there.
Did that help?
I'm not sure.
It's a lot of information.
Does it make a difference at all whether the containers are full or empty?
No, not at all.
I think the difference, the definition, the way I'm reading it, and again, we're trying to speak and analyze this at the same time, but to me, that's suggesting that the containers will be used at another time, not the recycle of these containers or the reuse. This is containers sitting, they're no longer or currently have goods in them, but at some other time will have goods in them. That's not the case here. This is a container that's brought to the site to be
Right, so-
refurbished to something else.
Well, I mean, it says the storage of empty or dry shipping containers, so there's nothing in them dry. They're just sitting there waiting to get shipped out to be on site
Well, they're being
somewhere else.
converted, and I think that's the part that I
Refurbished.
feel like we're, right. They're being refurbished or converted to a different use, and I think that's where I'm getting hung up a little bit, or trying to understand if it's clear or not clear. Two other questions while you're there. Do we know what I think it's tri-state, what that's zoned?
No, she was looking, she said, I don't have my cell phone in here, but she couldn't find any in Suffolk, so I'm not sure
It's on
where.
Holland Road as you go out towards Franklin, and maybe it crosses the line into, I don't know if that's Windsor or.
The other thing I'd like to clarify is we, the city, cannot proffer anything that's by right.
Well, that was the other thing I actually was
Yeah,
just
so
going to
we
state. There's
cannot
nothing
accept any
proffered at the
proffers.
moment. There are no proffers, and I wanted to be clear on that. It's not a rezoning, so therefore there are no proffers. There may be conditions that you set on yourselves, but
And we
at this
can't,
point,
we
there
can't
isn't.
impose any conditions either when it's just a by right use like that, just the setbacks and normal stuff.
And I guess that's my last question. If there was equipment rental, in my mind, on these other types of uses, they wouldn't be stacking things. There would be maybe a multi-story building, you would have equipment to be rented, but you don't typically see those stacked. So it doesn't, obviously we would want that to be limited. It will be limited per the easement from the airport. Do we have anything in writing that shows that easement, that 28 feet is the height limit?
I do not know.
You do, sir. It runs with the deed as part of the deed. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet now. I'm sure there's a million other questions. Thank you, Ms. Cobb. Do you all have questions for Ms.
Yeah,
Cobb?
I have several questions. Well, not for Ms. Cobb. Not for-
Now, Ms. Cobb, I do have a question. The
Sure.
applicant indicated that he proffered.
Right.
So his proffer really doesn't mean a thing.
So the only way we can get any kind of proffered or any kind of conditions is if he goes through the conditional use permit process that way. If it's a by right use, like if you guys overturn my decision, it's a by right use, there's no proffers, we can't accept anything. Does that make sense?
There can be self-imposed conditions as he goes through the
But we could not
engineering, but
enforce
the
anything
city
like
can't
that.
enforce any proffers other than the deeds or easements that sit on the site or the requirements for the M2 site and setbacks that would be upheld for the engineering of the
Yeah,
site.
at one point, they had applied for a conditional use permit to go through the conditional use permit, and then they withdrew their application and then went this route, so.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Cobb as she's at the podium? Okay, thank you, Ms. Cobb. Sir, please go ahead. Yes, sorry, Mr. Carnegie.
I'm kind of used of these type of units that he does have here. I am kind of used of when they brought up about the shipping containers, because I used to be the manager on base for shipping. So I understand the difference between the shipping containers and these. These are more like the containers that we used like when I was in the military, when Brown and Root used to ship these containers to us. We used them as offices. We used them as porta potties. We used them as light generators and everything like that. I have seen one of these yards before where they're not as high as people thinking, like 3 high, 4 high. I seen them as like 2 high, like what he was stating. And I've also seen these where they have the backup generators. Well, I'm just looking at the picture now, where they have basically like the generators in one section, the lights in one section. So it's basically like a rental type place, but they bring the rentals out to you. It's not like you just go in and you go pick it up or anything like that. These has to be physically shipped to you. Like at a new construction site, they may use one of these 8x10s units as an office out there while they're doing the new construction or anything like that.
Right. I know when they bring them out to the kids' swim meets and
Right.
use them for the portable bathrooms, for instance. And so, I guess I do have another, don't get up, but just as a question as a whole, what else would this fit into if it's not rental and it's not shipping container? Where would this type of use fall?
It's not be permitted at all.
Well, that's crazy. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, so I have a few questions. One, the hours of operation. I didn't see anything that stated what time deliveries start, what times delivery end. Also, he stated that had a conversation with the mayor, had a conversation with Kevin, but did you have a conversation with the community? Was there a conversation with the Civic League? Was there a conversation with Reverend Skeeter? Because my concern initially was safety, right? Was the fact, and I know we're not really.
This isn't a reason.
I understand that. Yeah, so I understand that. So we're not voting based on that, but I do have a concern with that. As far as the number of residential properties, as far as is these vehicles going to require an escort when they're being delivered from location back to site, right? And then as well as, when we're talking about what we have at the airport, especially with Peanut Fest, right? So there's going to be a lot of going in and out. So my main concern, yes, is more of a safety concern. There's more of, there was conversations made with certain people, but not the people that actually live in the community, right? So was that taken into consideration in regards to this business on site?
First of all, to answer your first question, the hours of operation are Monday through Friday from about 8 to 5. So it's a regular business. It's most of the deliveries are set up, to be delivered during those hours. As far as the movement, Robert Lewis, a traffic engineer, it was discussed with him, and it's my understanding from what I was given by the buyer that there would be minimal use, maybe only a handful of deliveries done a day, either delivered to the yard or taken out of the yard. It's not like this thing is an intermodal yard. Now, I oppose the shipping depot, because if we get the conditional use permit, I don't like that. Because now you're talking about something, if we get the conditional use permit approved, you're talking about a mess, and I don't want to put that on my neighbors. So if we go through.
But this is the starting point.
If we go through a conditional use permit and get approved, that would be a terrible use. This is a very light use, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and maybe between a handful, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 deliveries coming and going a day. It could be more one day, less another day. As far as talking to the community, the signs out front, I've talked personally to several people at both the churches and the various churches, and my neighbors, people I know. People know me. I've been here a long time. And,
yeah, but
can
I stop you right quick?
I haven't held something like you would do with the rezoning, where I do a public outreach meeting or something, because my position is I'm selling it to the buyer as a M2 property that could have something quite extensive on it. I've already talked to a company that does nuclear materials refinement that would like to locate there by right. It's just an industrial process. A stamping company for metal stamping, which I don't like either one of those. This is a very light use. It doesn't impact traffic much, has very low level of levels of service required. There's no school impact, there's no economic impact except all positive. It generates a heck of a lot more money.
Sir,
than I'm
could we
paying,
hear
so-
from the actual mini mobile
Yeah.
folks about delivery and shipping, if you don't mind?
What's it? Oh,
To answer the question about delivery and shipping.
the gentleman is from Mobile Mini. He can describe
Thank you.
it better.
Yeah, hey, so I would
Can you
like to
tell us
point
your
out-
name, sir?
My name is Will Fitzgerald,
Thank you.
and I would like to point out, if there's concerns about safety, we do have the lowest recordable incident rate in the industry. So that's, one thing we have.
Could you tell us how the mobile units get to the site and leave the site?
By truck, a rollback truck.
Is it your truck? Do you deliver them, or do other folks come in?
We have them delivered to us, and then we bring them to the customer.
So Mobile Mini delivers them to the customer, Mobile Mini collects them and brings them back? Okay. And approximately how many trips do you have per day typically? Can you give us that information?
I would say 6, 8, 10 at the most.
Trips per day? So it's fairly minimal. And again, I want to reiterate, because we've brought this up multiple times, the site is already zoned M2. We are not looking at a rezoning. We are looking at, basically, is this to be classified as shipping, or is this to be classified as rental? And thank you, sir.
I should clarify, we actually have 10 slots, but a lot of the deliveries take up multiple slots. So it could be as few as 3 or 4 a day as well.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
I have a question for you. When you get the containers, are they basically from a port somewhere where they've been used, and you take possession of them, buy them, or whatever?
Well, we buy them through a third party,
Okay.
but I think many of them are ISO when we get them, and then we convert them.
The follow-up is, in your conversion, do you do that on site? For instance, is there a shop? Will there be a shop on this site?
Well, it's not a shop. We have a technician that modifies them on the yard.
And he'll have repair facilities like welding and whatever is needed to make those things useful.
Right. Well, we just have the technician do all that stuff. He takes care of the welding and whatever else is needed.
So basically, what you're saying is it is storage, and you have a handyman there, a technician, to deal with any other problems.
That's an accurate description.
Thank you.
And could I answer the other question the gentleman asked? As far as Peanut Fest, we're quite a ways down from the entrance of Peanut Fest. And as far as the containers on the airport, I wasn't talking about the ones over by Peanut Fest. I was talking about the containers that are on the runway 1533 south end. There's 50 to 100, and they come and go. They probably make 10 trips a day or more, depending on what they're doing. They're fumigating with pretty heavy chemicals. Now, I just mentioned that if anything's a depot, that's actually an ISO container depot, and it's not got a conditional use permit. So I just feel that you're taking away from my rights. It's like a taking. I used to work with Joe Waldo. He's a famous attorney. He brought several of the cities into court over takings, and I feel this could be a taking. I mean, I'm just asking to use my property for a by right use for equipment rental. Now I know I've been a federal administrator. You can parse these words and change and smash them in any different way. I think it's pretty simple. This is a rental operation. That's the function of the company. They have these little metal boxes that they put, they get one way or another. I've been told they have some of them manufactured directly, some of them are converted. And I would just ask your consideration that this is a pretty simple question. This is a by right use, and it's a very light use relative to an M2 property, and I would ask your consideration that a mistaken identification of these have been made. These are not containers, so they can't be a container depot. If you want a container depot there and somebody wants to pay me a bunch of money, I'll probably take it, and then you'll have a container depot. Obviously, it'll go through the process for the CUP and all the machinations appropriate. But I thought this was a very light use. I didn't think it would impact the community very much. That's why I chose it. These are my friends that are out there, and I don't want to leave a mess. So thank you very much.
Cobb, if you could come up. Now, Mr. Leonard just indicated that he thought this was simple. So if it's simple, when you responded, what would have made your letter different instead of being in opposition to be in favor of it? Is there anything in the wordage or the understanding about containers that has made a difference with you?
It's when they had the pre-submittal meeting and the whole use that was described was stacking and storing these containers on site as the principal use. The cleanest place to place it is the container depot shipping. Other than that, there is nowhere to place this in our UDO is the problem. So we wouldn't allow it at all. So in order to appease them and find a place, a home for it, we placed it as it cleanly fit that definition and required the conditional use permit. We thought it fits container depot shipping. When you talk about the primary use of the property, it says temporary storage of empty or dry shipping containers. And when you go back to that looks like, feels like shipping containers, regardless if they're refurbished.
Is there anything that you've heard from the applicant today that makes you change your mind as to your initial response?
No.
Ms. Cup, do we have a definition for equipment rental and a place for equipment rental? I'm assuming that's M2.
So heavy equipment, self-propelled, self-powered, or pull-type equipment and machinery, including engines weighing 5,000 pounds or more, primarily employed for construction, industrial, maritime, mini, and forestry uses. So I can't fit it in that category either.
It looks like that these containers are more, they're coming on rollback trucks. They're not like coming on like some people may think like on tractor trailers or anything like that. These are coming back more like on rollback trucks. Now these containers do fall in there where Ms. Cobb said it does because they actually are containers, but they're just modified containers.
How long, I guess the other question is, how long do they sit on site to still fall within the definition that it's a shipping container? How many and how long will they be sitting on site before they get modified? Do they begin to modify immediately? So it's really not a shipping container sitting on site more than 60 days? So it's not, you don't have 60 of them sitting there for 60-plus days?
Oh, no. No, not
What's
even
the
close.
standard?
Our utilization rate is something like 90-some%. So, I don't know, 15 or 20 might be on a site at once on the yard.
But if this is going to be like a main hub, it should be more than that.
Well, right now, that's the thing is that when we have our utilization up the way we need it to be profitable, there's really not much on the site at all.
So they're not on the site, they're out?
There are units on the site. I don't want to give you the wrong impression there, but the vast majority are in the field.
In the field, which means there's going to be lots of deliveries.
Well, we do, yes, we send them out on delivery trucks, yes. But we do have the lowest recordable incident rate, and we have safety is our primary, we're a safety-first company, which, doesn't always help me with customers, but I think in this situation, it's important because, if they're going to be on these, residential roads.
That's what I was going to ask you. So the majority of your locations, right, how would you describe the locations of where the majority of your depots are located? Do you have situations where they are located in a more rural residential area, even though it's zone M2, or?
Well, we just moved from our lot in Virginia Beach, which is very close to residential zoning. It's on, I guess, near Wichita, I guess, if you're familiar with Virginia Beach. So, yeah, there's commercial and residential over there, too. It's not too far from some residences, but it isn't, it's a industrial area that it's in.
Can I touch upon a couple quick things on that and the zoning? I mean, this particular property, there's 40-foot trees between us and the one area where we're up against residential, okay? Everything else around it is M2 zone. And what I proffered, or what I offered, I should say, is I said, I'll go ahead and put up a 10-foot fence between me and that neighbor, even though when you're on this property, you can't see what's over there because there's 40 feet of trees. So I'm telling you, it's a very low impact use on this site. And if I were to get approved, one thing Mr. Leonard and I kind of laughed about is if I got approval for an actual container depot for shipping, if you want to upset the neighbors, allow that, because it's got 10-foot fences all around it. The reason I backed out of the CUP, I started the CUP, I backed out of it because there's these crazy rules of 300-foot setbacks. When you start taking 300-foot setbacks where you can do anything, that's a football field all around your property. You have nothing left, you know. So that's when I said I need to sit down with Ms. Cobb and discuss this and understand where she's coming from. As far as the zoning code, I mean, I pulled up all these permitted uses. To me, heavy equipment and industrial storage lots, permitted. Truck terminal, permitted. Machine shop, permitted. Industrial park, permitted. Rental services other than passenger vehicles, outdoor display or storage, permitted. Now, I don't know exactly what that is. Truck repair, permitted. Services general, permitted. Contractor and trade shops, outdoor storage and operations, permitted. So I'm like, I mean, if this was an M1 zone, I think this would be kind of a questionable call. This is an M2 zone, heavy industrial. I mean, I think Mr. Leonard could put in a application next week and turn this into some really crazy things. So I'm buying the property. I own 5 of these yards. I would not buy in a community that I didn't want to be in, on a location that I wouldn't want to operate in, or if I feel like I'm sweeping water uphill. I mean, I like Mobile Mini. They're a great company, and I think that this is a great location for what we're trying to do. And, you know, I live in a house too. I don't want craziness going on. But we went to the head of the traffic studies. He said, you don't even need a traffic study. You guys, I mean, you can't deliver too many of these things. You have 4 or 5 people on the yard. You just don't have that much going on that is going to create any sort of big issue.
So at the locations you currently have, how many deliveries are you averaging a day?
I would say, I think Will said that you have 10 slots, but they're not delivering 10 of these a day. And I would disagree with him on one thing. I was going to have Will's boss here, who's been with the company 6 years, okay? And he could tell you exactly because he's done it. But when you have 6 slots or 10 slots, I mean, you're not going to be able to deliver that many. They don't even have that many trucks. But if they do one to Virginia Beach, you know, coming back, if they do one out to Newport News, you know, this is going to be for the whole Hampton Roads area. So they just don't, people don't window shop for these, and they don't, there's just not that many going out there. The stuff that you see out on houses and where people just drop one down, they go to the port, they buy for $1,800 a multicolored crazy thing, and they put it down and it sits there for the next 15 years. You know, ironically, Mr. Leonard's property has had 3 cargo containers on it for the last number of years, just because, like everybody else, you put them out there, you know? I mean, and if you drive around town, you'll see them all over the place. We're not in that business. We're in the rental equipment business for offices, for these portable storage units, for furniture, for anything you would need if you were going to build a new apartment complex. Call us, we'll set you up. As soon as you're done, sweep them out, we'll pick them up. That's really all we do. The zoning I talked about, I mean, I really did try to come out and meet and have this discussion without all of you having to take your time, because it doesn't, I don't know what happened. That's why I've been kind of frustrated with this process, candidly. Anyway, any other questions?
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a couple of comments, if I can.
Sure, please do, Mr. Russell.
I'm really leaning towards not upholding the determination of the zoning department. I think for the following reasons. I think the traffic issue, where it's located on Airport Road, I find it hard to think that it would be going in the direction towards Carolina. And where it's located on Airport Road is very close to Whaleyville Boulevard and Carolina Road. So from a traffic issue, I don't see that as much of a problem for the community at all. I do think that there was, the other concern of mine is and you hate to say what else could go there, but that is a concern of mine, that it could be a whole lot worse than what we're talking about here. And so for the reasons that I think traffic issue is not really a problem, I wish that there had been as Dominic had pointed out, I wish there had been a little bit more communication with the neighbors and the civic groups or whatever. But again, I'm leaning towards, and if I need to make a motion or if anybody else wants to comment.
I just have one question for Ms. Cobb. So if we are not looking at these as shipping containers, right? Are you all prepared for someone to come back and say that they want to have this as residential, these same containers being refurbished?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
For instance, in certain locations, these same shipping containers are used as residential.
We don't allow them to be turned into homes. Is that what you're asking? We don't permit that here at the
So,
city of Suffolk.
and that's the reason why I asked the question. So if we say that they are not shipping containers, right, then it's almost like it's going to kind of push the envelope a little bit more to say when someone wants to come in and have these on a lot as residential properties, because they're now being refurbished and we just approve for this use, right? What's going to stop a contractor coming in saying he wants to put 20 on a lot and have it similar to a mobile home use? I just wanted to put it out there for you to think about.
Yeah, I think that's a different, I mean, it's not permitted, it doesn't fit within any of the standards of residential. It's, that does
Yeah,
give me
but
great
we're having-
concern when you, when
I mean,
you
we're
say
having
that.
a hard time trying to figure out if it's going to be considered shipping containers or not, right? Or rental use. Well, that's just something to think about.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting.
I mean, that has, those questions have been posed before about people, because you see the homes being constructed out of shipping containers, and I think there's some building code stuff that's coming through regarding that, because people are trying to stack them and use them as a cheaper means of construction, so.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Cobb as she's at the podium? Thank you. The public hearing is closed, sir. I apologize. Do we have a motion on the table, or does anyone like to make a motion in regard to the definition and upholding the City of Suffolk's definition or appealing City of Suffolk's definition?
I'm going to say that I approve it, and the reason why is because it can be something worse.
I'm not sure. So
Okay.
you approve the definition, or you are, or?
I'm approving the definition as it being a container, because you
But
basically,
the motion has to be that you are denying the zoning determination based on the definition, and you're in favor of the applicant having it by use.
Or you're upholding the City of Suffolk's
Right.
definition.
So how,
So we have a motion.
I'm not clear on the motion.
The motion should, if you want to deny.
Did you want to make a motion?
now, because
Okay.
Dominique was trying to explain it to me, but I'm kind of like where he is right now, what exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and let you finish.
The motion, if you don't agree with the zoning determination, then the motion should be to deny the zoning determination as it relates to the definition, which means the motion will pass in favor of him by right using the property for that stated use which he is asking to use it for. So the motion would have to be to deny.
Let me just state one more thing. My concern is due to the fact that, or I guess I'm a bit conflicted, because the containers as they come to the site will almost immediately, from what I gather, be converted into something else. So just as somebody that really agrees with the conversion of existing product and not making new product, I really think this is a great idea to be able to create bathrooms, offices, things for mobile units for sites that are needed. We're in the housing industry in some regard, and I see them used. Like I said, I see the mobile units come to the kids' swim meets. So I don't see them as shipping containers. As long as they're being converted upon receipt or upon them coming in, they're not sitting on the site as a shipping container for a long period of time, then I don't see them as shipping containers, and they are not transporting goods to the site. So I am having a hard time, and I apologize, Ms. Cobb, because I almost feel like I'm in line with you, but I am having a hard time with this. I don't think it's something we should turn away and just specifically say, sorry, it's our turn now, specifically say that, oh, we don't have a place to put it, therefore we don't want it, because I do think it's a viable, good use, specifically in the M2 zoning, which can have such heavy industrial uses and such disturbing type uses. So I guess with that being said, I somewhat agree with you, with what you're saying, Mr. Eslick. I don't see these as shipping containers. I do see these as a recycled type use for something better.
So I will make a motion, and my motion is to not uphold the written determination of the zoning department.
I'll second it.
Is there a discussion in regard to the motion? If not, Mr. Skinner, will you call for a vote?
The vote is to deny the zoning administrator's determination. Dominique Epps,
No.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Dan Froman,
Yes.
Corey Cornigan,
No.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion passes as stated.
All right.
Right. Well, I wasn't done. I just want to,
They got away.
yeah. So by right, they will be allowed to have the mini mobile, but I do hope that as they move forward, they will take the conversation that we've had, the height restrictions and the buffers into consideration as they move forward. Thank you. We'll move on to the next hearing, which I make sure is, I think 27?
28.
Sorry about that. We'll move on to BZA 2022, 1523 Holland Road, Taco Bell of America. Mr. Skinner, will you please will you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 28-2022. The applicant Taco Bell of America LLC is requesting a variance to reduce the required front yard setback located within a special quarter overlay district, SCOD, from 30 feet to 2.3 feet for a drive-through lane and a parking reduction from the required 31 spaces to 26 spaces. The property is identified as tax map 33A*AW*B. The address is 1523 Holland Road, zoning classification neighborhood commercial district B1. When you act upon this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required front yard setback within the special quarter overlay district, SCOD, from 30 to 2.3 feet for a drive-through lane and a parking reduction from 31 spaces to 26 spaces. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff report by Jennifer Cobb.
As previously stated, the applicant Taco Bell of America LLC is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31412C1A, to reduce the required front yard setback from 30 feet to 2.3 feet for a parcel located within the Special Corridor Overlay District, and Article 6, Section 31606-7, Table 606-2, off-street parking requirements. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 33A*AW*B, located at 1523 Holland Road, Suffolk, Virginia, zoning classification B1, neighborhood commercial. This variance request was advertised in Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2, 2204 of the Code of Virginia, and a public sign was posted on the property. The applicant is requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance to reduce the required front yard setbacks in order to accommodate the drive aisles and landscaping for the site. Section 31412C1A states, "All buildings, drives, and parking areas and stormwater detention and retention structures and best management practices shall have a minimum 30-foot front, side, and rear yard setback when adjacent to a public right-of-way designated as a special corridor overlay district." The city acquired right-of-way along the front of this property for the road widening project, creating a hardship due to the demands of the SCOD setback requirements. The applicant is also requesting a variance from Article 6, Section 31606-7, Table 6062, to reduce the required off-street parking from 31 spaces to 26 spaces. The required parking for a restaurant with a drive-through is 1 space per 65 square foot of gross floor area. Due to the existing stormwater pond being located in the rear of the parcel where it narrows, they are limited in the number of off-street parking spaces they can provide on-site. Administratively, I can reduce the required parking up to 10%, but that only reduces required parking up to 28 spaces. The site does not provide enough square footage to meet the required parking, therefore a parking variance is required in order for them to develop the site. Traffic engineering has reviewed this application and has no concerns or comments regarding the reduced setback for the drive aisle and the landscaping. Since the applicant will be utilizing the existing BMP on site, it forces them to push the building, drive aisle, and parking toward the front of the site. This parcel faces several hardships due to the increased right-of-way required by the city for the road widening project, as well as being located in the Special Corridor Overlay District. Due to the shape of the parcel and the road widening project and the property being located within the SCOD, staff recommends approval of this request. I have the site plan up on the screen, which shows their detention pond in the back, as well as the drive aisles being pushed up front and the parking along the side.
Ms. Cobb, what's the current use of the site?
It's a vacant, I think it's the old Alforno's, I think, that's there. It's vacant right now.
And the pond, you're saying, is in place, but obviously
It
will
is.
need to be modified and
Yes.
Okay.
But they're going to still utilize what's back there.
Questions for Ms. Cobb as she's at the podium?
You indicated that traffic has looked at this.
Yes. They have no concerns because there will still be curb and gutter and sidewalk before their drive aisle.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Cobb as she's at the podium? Thank you, ma'am. We will now open the public hearing. We have 30 minutes in length for this application. We have 10 minutes for the proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone to speak in favor of this application?
Hello, I'm Sarah McGowan. I'm with the GPD Group. We are Taco Bell's architect and engineer for the project, located at 117 Perimeter Center West, Atlanta, Georgia, 30329. I'm here if y'all had any questions. Due to this right-of-way taking, we now have to come in for the variance for the SCOD front setback. We're able to reuse the existing retention pond. We'll have to do improvements when we go through the design, but the intention is to use that, and that way we don't increase any kind of improvements into the existing vegetation that serves as a buffer with the residential behind, because it is narrow, but most of that is trees. So we're trying to contain all the commercial to the front portion of the property. So, and then the stacking for Taco Bell, their standard's 20. So now that we have 26 plus the 12 stacking, Taco Bell's not concerned, but we respect the code and we're asking for a variance from the 31. So, thanks.
Anything in addition?
No, but I'm here if you'll have questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone to speak in opposition of this application?
My name is Whit Harper. I work at Saunders and Ojeda at 705 West Washington Street. I'm here on behalf of Carolina Quality Foods Incorporated, which is the entity which owns the owns the Wendy's next door to this Taco Bell. I have a couple of concerns, and I certainly appreciate the difficult task Ms. Cobb and zoning administrator has, as well as trying to work out the environmental and buffer issues that we have here. But In going through the 15.2-2309 is the statute that governs whether or not Board of Zoning Appeals would grant a variance. There are two, they go through, I believe, 5 factors here, but I think the most important here are 1 and 2. The first one being the property interest for which the variance is being requested was acquired in good faith, and any hardship was not created by the applicant for the variance. My understanding here is that the applicant is Taco Bell of America, and this taking occurred, it seems some time ago, but at least a while ago, and I can certainly imagine with their corporate structure that they looked into what was happening, where it was, and I believe this lease took place after the taking. I would have to go to Ms. Cobb or Ms. Prentice to verify that one way or the other, but it doesn't say the property owner there, it says the applicant for the variance. And so when an applicant comes in and says, I want to take this restaurant, which used to be a Waffle House in Al Forno's, a place that didn't have a drive-through, that didn't have a certain limited seating capacity, and required, frankly, probably a little bit less parking and less space, and then says, I want to put a big building there, well, I would argue they're creating the hardship there. Again, the other issue I would have is, even if we do determine that the hardship wasn't created by them, the taking, from what I can see by the certificate of taking, which is recorded in Suffolk Circuit Court Clerk's office, is that at the most, it's a little under 17 feet, the taking. That's on the most recent plat that I was able to pull up. They're asking for a change from 30 feet to 2.3. So if there's a hardship, maybe it gets to 13 feet. For taking 30 minus 17, but all the way to 2.3 is asking for a lot, I feel. None of that expansion, to me, from what I can see on the certificate of taking, seems to take away a single parking spot. Now, I think Ms. Cobb might correctly point out, and she can certainly correct me if I'm wrong about this, that there is an issue where is the parking going to be beyond a setback at this time. I think it already is my understanding, and that they argue that Taco Bell will be fixing that. I think the variance request should be for let's get the parking still in there, because it doesn't look like the taking takes away any parking. It looks to me as though the parking spots are still there. They do need a variance to be beyond the setbacks from where they are. The second factor I'd look at under 15.22309 is the little Roman numeral 2 there is the granting of the variance would not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property and nearby properties. And I can certainly understand a zoning administrator can't go out and canvass the neighborhood. That's a big ask. However, I have here with me today Miss Martha Bazante. She's the operator for the local Wendy's. And she would, these are pictures of her operation around lunchtime. And I mean, you can see that this place is packed. And they have a parking lot right beside this place. There's no fence in between. And so essentially what they'll be doing is providing parking to Taco Bell. And, they were able to follow all of zoning's reasonable requirements. As far as making sure that per their square footage, they had their spots that were available. So essentially, we'd be asking them to provide parking for a competitor in the fast food world. The other thing I take a little bit of umbrage with is if you go through their application, when asked whether or not there would be a substantial detriment to adjacent properties, the applicant wrote that the variance request will not cause a substantial detriment since the number of provided parking spaces is higher than Taco Bell standard. I think if we're to follow that logic, we set up a pretty dangerous precedent. And I don't think they are planning to do anything in bad faith, but a municipality sets out its own UDO with its own tables for its own parking space logic. If we allow a corporation to come in and say, well, this is what we normally do, and we're willing to do this for you, then why do we have a table in the UDO setting up parking spaces? We have something very clear that's established. We have a realm of flexibility that a zoning administrator is given. I think it's 10% she can change. However, if we're to take just their word that normally we have a good deal more parking spots, but we're lowering it for you, or we're exceeding that for you, we're really supplanting City of Suffolk's municipal code with Taco Bell standards. And so for that reason, we would ask that you deny this request for a variance. Ms. Bazante is here, and she can talk to you a little bit about kind of what their normal rush is, what their parking spot situation is. And if you'd like to see these pictures, I'm happy.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if we
Not
could
at
get those, that would be helpful.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition of this application? Thank you. I'm sorry. Seeing no one else to speak in opposition, is anyone else that would like to speak in opposition right now? Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to come up to speak in favor or a 5-minute rebuttal?
I just wanted to address what he said about Taco Bell, I guess, customers taking the Wendy's parking. Taco Bell, all during COVID, they saw that more people were using the drive-through, right, because they couldn't go inside. So all the Taco Bells had a single drive-through lane. Now they're coming through and do double drive-through because most of their orders are through the drive-through. So they will not have the parking lot full at any time. I don't have the reports or anything with me, but I'd be able to provide that later if I needed to. But I just wanted to make that clear that we would not utilize Wendy's parking. We would contain our customers on our property. So.
Is there anyone else to speak in regard to the application? Seeing none, we will close this public hearing. I think there's several questions on the table. Do we have?
I have a question in regards to the photos. What was the purpose of you providing these photos?
So that was provided for me by Mr. Nicola, who, sorry, come up here. That was provided to me by Mr. Nicola, who basically, that was Tuesday around lunch. He just wanted to indicate how full the parking lot was already. And his concern is that, if an adjacent landowner, also a fast food corporation and restaurant, has similar parking, and we are reducing their number of spots, they're naturally going to go over there. I mean, I drove over there today. There's nothing, and I don't think that Ms. Prentice is here to say, yeah, that she's trying to pull a fast one, but, there's no fence in between these buildings. At a point, that parking is going to get taken up if there's not enough parking at Taco Bell where they're at. So his concern is that if they're doing that level of business right now and it's filling up their parking lot, then, the Taco Bell is going to be doing a similar business, which may also be taking up parking spots.
So here's my question, and the reason why I asked when I'm looking at the photos, right, if Wendy's parking lot is that full, where are their customers parking when they can no longer park inside Wendy's parking lot? Are you all currently using, are your customers parking next door because there is no other room, as you stated,
Well,
that they're full?
that's a question for Ms. Bazante. I would say this, as far as whether or not there is no other room, that looks fairly full. If we're essentially asking another restaurant to have the same type of capacity with less spots, that by its definition couldn't work, would be my argument. So that's what I have there. And she can certainly speak to what kind of traffic.
I just think that the photo would have been tremendous if it was showing their parking lot full.
Well,
and y'all parking lot and her parking lot empty, right? But you're showing.
Unfortunately, but Mr. Kayla, he can't go out and have pictures of other, or didn't have during peak hours any, cameras over there to show us those type of photos. But I can certainly understand what you mean by that, Mr. Epps. It would have been helpful. I acknowledge that.
How many parking spaces does Wendy's have?
32.
The same size, same use. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Question for Ms. Cobb. When El Forno's was there, there's a median strip down the existing road. Of course, it's going to be probably modified, and I don't know exactly to what degree, but to get to El Forno's from the east, you usually turned at the stoplight and went around the back of Burger King and on over to Forno's. You could not make a left turn into the facility from the east. And I just wondered do you know if there's going to be a left turn allowed, or?
I am not sure of that,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
She has her hand up.
Please.
Because they are going through the conditional use permit process as well, so there will be stuff imposed on them then if they make it through our,
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
So right now, we're gonna keep the driveway, it's right in, right out. Right now on the existing El Forno, there is a cross access that exists that will be utilized if you want to come in from the east, or if you want to get out to the light to take a left. So there's an existing.
Will it
That
be
cross access is on the Wendy's property.
It is, yes, and it's existing, and so it's the cross access, and there's a sewer that we will connect.
And not that I don't understand, but did you say there will be access to Tacos from behind, or has that
Yeah, it'll
been cut out?
It'll be behind through, so you'll leave the Taco Bell. I guess Jennifer's.
yeah. What do you want to do?
Just the site plan.
There you go.
Okay, thanks. So in the back east of the pond, so that access, we're modifying it to connect to the cross access that's behind Wendy's right now. So if you look kind of, I guess, to the right side of the plan, so we're modifying it. It exists right now. Sorry.
So I think Wendy's is stating not only a hardship that's going to be placed on, you can sit down, I'm sorry, not only a hardship that's being placed on them, obvious level of concern, I think there's a visibility concern with the building pulled up so close to the roadway.
It's not going to be the building. The building's going to meet the 30-foot setback. It's the drive aisle that's asking for that 2.3.
Right, now I understand
Okay.
that. Yes, I understand, I got it. But everything is being pulled forward, whereas everyone else along Holland Road is going to have to hold that 30-foot Scott step back, which means not just the building, but there can't be any drive aisles or anything else. If I may finish, I understand that some of the SCOD setback is a bit of a hardship, but down to 2 feet, I'm having some issue with. So I would ask, and I will make a motion for this, for a 30-day deferral to see if we can potentially rework the site to maybe flip some of the parking closer to the pond, understanding that you'll have to do some rework to the stormwater management area, and at least try to gather not only some more parking spaces, but also additional buffering along Holland Road. So I'm making a motion for a 30-day deferral for you to come back with a revision to the site plan that would potentially provide a bit more parking as well as a larger setback along Holland Road, because I don't feel like 2 feet is an acceptable setback.
So I have a question on that. If you're proposing for the parking to be closer to the BMP, we understand that is the main entryway, right?
Well, there's 2 entryways. There's an entryway. Yeah, but I understand.
Okay. I just wanted to
There's
have.
2 entries into the site. I'm just asking for it to see if it could potentially be reworked.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Eslick, there's a motion and then a second by Mr. Eslick for deferral of the request. Is there a discussion in regard to the motion?
Yeah, I spoke a little bit too soon. Apologize about that. Yeah, so I guess my question was, I mean, you answered it. You know, it was just coming from the east, right? The main driveway or entryway is going to come right behind Wendy's where their BMP is. So if they push the parking lot back, right, we're now talking about parking being close to the BMP and then parking also being close to one of those main entryways, which to me seems like a greater concern, greater risk that you're proposing for the parking to be close to the BMP, right? So now what type of barrier are they going to be required to put up?
There's not typically barriers for stormwater ponds.
My point. And so you're looking for parking to be close to that. And we're talking about, I'm thinking about high school students. If putting parking close to a BMP is it's a safety concern for me.
There, certainly a second motion can be made, or we can take a vote on the motion that's on the table.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to,
Well, first, before you make a motion, we have to either approve or deny the motion on the floor. Or modify the motion if you agree to a modification based on what he's saying.
But we
Okay.
have a motion and a
Right.
second to that motion.
Right.
Again, I have some concerns with the 2-foot separation between Holland Road and the drive-through drive aisle, and some visibility concerns to the Wendy's that already exists. So if there's no additional conversation in regard to that motion, again, it's just a request for 30 days to see if we can review or take a look at some other configurations that would, one, add parking, and two, change the configuration some. And I understand, with that said, that some modifications would have to be made to the existing stormwater management pond. Mr. Skinner, would you please call the roll?
Dominique Epps?
clarity real quick. So we're voting on your, on
30-day
your motion?
deferral.
Okay, okay, all right. Yes, I'm fine with that.
Richard Eslick?
Yes.
Dan Froman?
Yes.
Corey Cornigan?
Yes.
Melissa Venable?
Yes.
The motion is for a 30-day deferral.
Thank you. Hopefully that we can, the owners of Wendy's and Taco Bell can work together to come up with something that makes more sense for the site. Thank you. Our last application this afternoon is BZA 29-2022 by Mr. and Mrs. Woods. Mr. Skinner, would you please read the caption?
Before the Board of Zoning Appeals today is BZA 2922. The applicant, Damon and Linda Woods, are requesting a variance to reduce the required yard setback adjacent to a street from 20 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a detached garage. The property is identified as tax map 6B*P*2*22. The address is 5107 Kiswick Court, zoning classification, planning development, PD. When you act upon this request, you will be acting on a request to reduce the required yard setback adjacent to a street from 20 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a detached garage. Should the board decide in favor of approving this request, the 8 findings as listed in your package must be articulated as part of the motion. We will now have staff report by Jennifer Cobb, zoning administrator.
I'm presenting this one on behalf of Melvia Knight as well. As previously mentioned, the applicants Damon and Linda Woods are requesting a variance from the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Section 31407C, Table 4071, Dimensional Standards K, to reduce the required side yard setback adjacent to a street from 20 feet to 10 feet for the construction of a detached garage. The property is identified as tax map and parcel 6B*B*2*22, located at 5107 Keswick Court, Suffolk, Virginia, Sleepy Hole Voting Borough, zoning classification PD, plan development. This variance request is advertised in the Suffolk News Herald, and a notice was mailed to adjacent property owners in accordance with Section 15.2.2204 of the Code of Virginia, and a sign was posted on the property. The location of 5107 Keswick Court is identified as Lot 22 within the subdivision of South Village of Harborview, Section 2 of Pod P. The property owner submitted a request to the Division of Community Development to construct an accessory structure which required additional review from city staff. The accessory structure was subject to review from the managing agency identified as the City of Suffolk Department of Public Works Engineering. According to the recorded plat and the physical survey, the applicants, along with their neighboring lots shown to the north and west, share a portion of a 15-foot drainage easement dedicated to the City of Suffolk. The preferred location of the accessory structure was denied due to the possible encroachment within the 15-foot drainage easement along the side and rear yards. The property owner amended the request for placement within the side yard adjacent to a street that abuts Murrayfield Loop. the location of the drainage easement may have limited the use of the lot, reducing the buildable area and prevented development within the suitable areas located to the rear and side yards. So he's proposed to put it on the left-hand side of the lot, out of the required easements. However, it is then placing it within our required setbacks. So due to the location of the 15-foot drainage easement and the reduction of the buildable area to support the construction of a detached garage within the side or rear yards of their site, staff recommends approval of their request. They also met with their homeowners association and received approval from them as well. And this is what they're proposing, a similar structure to look like this. It'll be brick to match the home. And I'm available for any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. Any questions for Ms. Cobb before she sits? We will now open the public hearing. We have 30 minutes in length, 10 minutes for proponents, 15 minutes for opposition, and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone to speak in favor of this application? You've waited a long time today. I apologize.
Yes, my name is Damon Woods, and it's my wife Linda Woods. What's going on is that we're in the cul-de-sac, so we kind of odd. On the right, we got a problem, and on the left, we got a problem. On the right, we got a problem because of the easement. Now, the drainage, they say, well, you can't put it there because the drainage area, you can't put on that side. So we said, okay, we'll go to the left side. Going to the left side, they said, okay, now we got a problem with the variance and the location. And the reason why we want to get that little garage built, I mean, then the homeowner association said we can only do 12 by 12, so it's not a whole lot, but it's more than, it's something that we can deal with. And we want it because we got a deck on the back of the house which need to be updated. But that deck, we got a lot of deck furniture and umbrellas and stuff that got set around that we can't put in the garage. I mean, we got 2 cars in there already. So we're asking for that the board take consideration as a homeowner. We've been there 20-some years. And actually, we was there when the first got built. So we're to the point right now, the rest of the court, of course. I mean, that's basically what we need it for.
So it's going to be a detached shed for our lawnmowers and deck furniture and different things like that. And we need the extra footage because it would be too close to our deck and our fence if we don't get the extra footage.
Sure.
And we're kind of going to decorate it a little bit to put the brick the same color of the house. 'Cause this is red brick here. This is just a copy of what we're going to do, but actually our brick is more like white. So it's going to dress it up a little bit, basically.
Very good. Thank you.
And you said the size is 12 by 12?
Yes.
We got to wait a minute before.
That's the only size that, Harborview Association said, well, you can't build it any bigger. I mean, it'd be nice if we could do that, but we got to accept what they say.
Okay. Let's see if there's anyone in opposition, and then we'll call you back if we have additional questions. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak in opposition? Is there anything additional before you sit down, or is there anything additional you'd like to add? Or
We're going to, because of the Merrifield Loop that comes beside that, we're going to do some landscaping and kind of put a, kind of camouflage a little bit on the side so you can't really look in there. We got crepe myrtles now down the side there, but as the wintertime comes, it's going to fade away a little bit. But we're going to do some landscaping on the left side so you won't really see the building as much.
Thank you very much, sir. I believe that concludes the public hearing. Is there discussion in regard to the application, or would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
A second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. A motion by I'm sorry. It's been a long day.
Me, Dan.
Yeah. Mr. Froman. Sorry. I apologize. And a second for Mr. Carnegie. And I appreciate the fact that you all have gone to the Homeowners Association, already received a letter in support. Will you please call for a vote, sir? Thank you.
Dominique Epps,
Yes.
Richard Eslick,
Yes.
Dan Froman,
Yes.
Corey Corrigan,
Yes.
Melissa Venable.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Congratulations. Thank you for being so patient this afternoon. We have a meeting for, oh yeah, I tabled that for 30 days, so there you have it. Is there anything else on the? Okay, good. Thank you. I believe that now closes the September 13th BZA. We will see you next month.